Here we go again, take two. Messi. This time. Yes. Hi, Jasmina.
Hi, do you guys see me?
I can't see you, but I can hear you. And we have the chart behind us. Green screen is working. So, yay.
Okay,
Thank
okay.
you for looking at the
If you
birth chart of Lionel Messi. Lionel or Lionel, I have Chiron and Gemini, so I'm open to correction on that.
yeah. Hi guys, I'm sorry about this. I had just a Mercury retrograde
Mercury
stories all
retrograde.
the time.
And I think the last time we did a live, Jasmina, was Mercury retrograde as well.
We are pushing it.
Is the interference that you're in or mine? That's better.
Nothing is working properly. Okay, you start, please. Thank you everybody for patience.
Thank you for waiting. So we were just saying that we're using the meridian system today to look at his birth chart. It's an old system. It's used in Uranian astrology, and it's helpful in Messi's case because we don't actually know for sure what his birth time is. And we can still, garner a lot of information from looking at the aspects, and the meridian system is very helpful as well for seeing how certain themes are going to play out in his life. Would you agree, Jasmina?
Absolutely. This is a great tool if you don't know somebody's time. I won't focus on houses anyway today. I just feel that we want to
focus on houses or angles with the meridian system. We look more at aspects and more the signs. But it's interesting to look at the houses because with meridian system, everyone has a Libra ascendant. So if you want to try this yourself, and in Messi's case, you can see that that puts his sun very elevated in his birth chart. And he's got a really lovely Cancer stellium. And what really surprised me about Messi when I first looked at his birth chart was, the amount of water energy he has. I didn't expect it for someone who's so high achieving in sports.
And no earth. I was surprised to see that he has no earth. Usually earth is the one that that wants results and works hard to get results, but he has no earth except something. I don't know. What does he have in earth?
Something. He has Neptune and
Neptune. That's only.
He is cardinal dominant. So he is a go-getter. He's got a lot of cardinal energy in his birth. Very little earth. He has air, he's got fire, a lot of water, a bit of mutable energy, no fixed energy though much really, apart from his Pluto and Scorpio. But then again, we don't know his ascendant, so a lot of people in Aquarius rising. But that is
the way I look at the charts, if we don't have the birth time, because the houses is actually where the energy manifests in which area of life. So even if we don't know the houses, we can still understand the person, what drives them, how they are made of, So if we just don't know in which area of their lives they're going to manifest that energy. That's how I look at the houses anyway. So.
And I know that many astrologers believe that when there's a stellium of energy, the inverse or the opposite can be true. So with him, with all that Cancer energy, he can behave quite like a Capricorn at times because the energy gets so concentrated. It's like the reverse happens. So that could well be the case with Messi. But do you want to start with some of the aspects, Jasmina, or just the energy in general?
Yes. So what caught my mind is that there's all these oppositions. So this is, when you look at with a person who has a lot of oppositions, they're struggling their life because they're pulled in two directions. So they always need to find a compromise, right? They always need to find the middle way.
A weak, what I would call a weak karmic cross almost, between his sun, Neptune, and the nodes of destiny. It's still a cross. I consider orbs, even if they are wide, it's still, he's had some hardship, he's had some delays, he's had setbacks. But as you know, karmic crosses are very powerful in a birth chart. So like Neptune opposite the sun is the big one, even though it's a 4-degree orb, it's definitely...
It's big. It's big.
It's a hallmark for someone who is famous, someone who has that kind of star quality, who's godlike and revered, someone who's misunderstood, someone who doesn't see themselves clearly.
I mean, with Chiron being so near his son, it's also a very hard aspect, you know, especially maybe his relationship with his dad. I know his dad is his manager, so you know, having a double authority through that, you know, because I don't think he really likes authority, to be honest.
Yeah,
You know,
Neptune opposite the sun as well, the aspect for idolizing the father. We've spoken about
yes,
this before. Yeah.
yeah,
Idolizing the dad, but the dad never quite meeting your expectations, you know, or disappointing you in some way. And it's very
yeah,
interesting because when Messi was younger and when he had to move to Barcelona, even though I'm sure he was thrilled to move to Barcelona, it was out of necessity too, because they had the funds to pay for his treatment. His family moved over with him, but then dad stayed with him, and mom and I think the brothers moved back to Argentina, and he was very homesick, missed his mom a lot. You can see in his birth chart, he's got
up,
Saturn opposite his moon, you know, separation from the mother figure and distance there between mom and dad and the sacrifices made, you know. And whenever you see Saturn opposite Venus, anyway, I always think it's like Saturn is saying, yeah, you've got talent, but like, are you willing to make sacrifices? How far are you willing to
yes.
go?
As somebody mentioned, astrology and stuff said Chiron is also on his sun moon midpoint, which is a good point because it is wound about parents and, you know, about the way he's nurtured and his self-confidence. So he did have that lack of nurturement, maybe, and self-confidence when he was younger. So I think he did a great job compensating that through the hard work, which for somebody who doesn't have Earth, kudos to him. Really, really, you know, he was really working on it
And if you
to
look
work
at
on his issues.
his
Mm-hmm.
Gemini placements, Jasmina, his moon and Gemini, you know, Gemini, we're always thinking of multiples. Moon and Gemini, he moved from his home, you know, at a young age, had to move very far away. He had two homes essentially. He only got back to Argentina maybe once or twice a year. Being so far away from friends, from family, the sacrifices made, you know, and Moon and Gemini as well. Someone that would settle abroad as well eventually. You know, he was always going to be quite distant
Yeah.
from his homeland, especially with that Saturn opposition. You know, strong ties to the homeland, but having to
Mm-hmm.
be far away from the homeland, you know, having to make these sacrifices in his career.
I'm thinking because I have a Gemini moon and we always try to rationalize our feelings. So I think it helped me with all this water and Cancerian energy. He was still able to rationalize somehow and find a logical way of how to, you know, cope with his, like a coping mechanism. So I think that Gemini would help him.
And
And I
the
like,
conjunct
mhm,
Venus as well, Jasmina, like a
yes,
really intuitive type of player, you know, bringing
yeah.
intuition and emotions into the game, like outside the
It,
box thinking.
yeah. A urge to socialize and intellectualize with you know with people around him, right? So it helped him. Yeah, I think probably his friendships helped him a lot as well
Yeah,
with this
I,
placement.
I think an important thing we need to mention is the fixed star conjunct his Venus. He has fixed star Rigel conjunct his Venus,
So
which explains
does,
a lot.
what does that mean? What does that mean? I'm not
So
very,
Rigel
I don't know
is
much with
fixed star
stars.
is associated with honor and riches, and it's very lucky. And I believe it's also associated with talent. And you know what's interesting? It's associated with artistic talent. And when people talk about Messi, they have said that Messi is like, you know, an artist, you know, when he plays football. And they say things
Ah,
like, Messi is the type of footballer that an artist would create, whereas Cristiano Ronaldo is almost like a footballer that an engineer would create because, you know, he's tall, he has the physique. Messi is 5'7". He's not typical, but the way he plays is beautiful and creative. So that's that fixed star, Rigel. And it's all about 7-year cycles as well, that fixed star.
mhm,
He's
mhm.
undergone 7-year cycles in his life. But that fixed star conjunct his Venus has been very lucky for him and has probably offset a lot of the harsh exact opposition from Saturn. It's made it
Yes,
easier, I would imagine.
yeah, because that is, you know, he might see his mother also as an authority or something. Like I think his parents and family, and as you say, you know, really made an impact in his life,
Yeah.
like a strong impact.
Yeah, we have been very lucky for him. And as well, you know, if you look at this in Meridian, okay, I know we said we weren't going to look too closely at houses, but these placements are in the ninth house. And you have to remember that, you know, the people who mentored him abroad, they became like family to him. Some of those coaches, you know, he was at like Barcelona for over a decade anyway, I'm sure. So, you know, from a very young age, he was 13. He didn't actually debut for them till he was 17. These people took a huge risk on him as well, because it was pretty unheard of to get a player from abroad, you know, so young, that we're saying, you know, that kind of thing happens in your own country. You might talent spot someone in Spain and bring them in at 13, but to bring a guy from Argentina to Barcelona at such a young age was
I was
huge.
thinking,
Incredible
I was
vision.
thinking, yeah, I was thinking, where do we see in his chart his health issues that he had as a youngster, right? So he had some growth hormone issues, right? So I was wondering, where do we see that?
Well,
Is it
I know,
maybe Mars
yeah,
Cancer?
yeah, people will debate this, but I feel it's definitely Mars conjunct Black Moon Lilith in Cancer. I personally feel that is, but I mean, I'm just thinking even the aspects to Mars. His Mars is conjunct Mercury retrograde as well.
And
I
Lilith.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Mercury retrograde again delays, and Mars in Cancer, I often feel, is like having a retrograde Mars. Mars does not know what to do in Cancer, you know, and Cancer is all about nurturing and
I'm thinking it crossed my mind. So this Mars is square Jupiter. Jupiter is about growth, and square is a challenge.
Oh,
Mars is
exactly, well spotted.
physical hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking
And there's a
that.
two-degree orb, Jasmina, between his Mars and his Jupiter. The
Yeah,
big challenge for Messi was that, okay, he got diagnosed, but they didn't have the money for the medication. Jupiter square Mars, 2-degree orb, again, finances. So he moved to Barcelona. Like, yes, it was an amazing move, but it was out of necessity. They could fund I think it was 1,000 a month it cost to get those injections, and his family were struggling. The club in
also
Argentina was struggling.
Venus opposed Saturn is also money struggles, can be delayed in
Exactly.
getting money.
If you look at his
Yeah.
chart in Meridian, we have Pluto here in the second
Yeah.
house. This is,
Yeah.
this can show definitely struggle with money, but also can show like huge wealth being amassed over the course of a lifetime.
But
A lot of money, ups and downs with money.
now that you mentioned Pluto, I like his Pluto, and
Me
why?
too.
Because it's such a great aspect. So it gives him an ability to transform, which he literally did physically and mentally and everything. And he really used, I think Pluto is helping him in his life very much.
Yes,
To
he's very
achieve.
Plutonic. He's got Pluto trining his sun, making him like an incredible leader.
And powerful, like a
Five,
powerful like a
five-degree
person.
orb as well, Jasmina. So again, 5 degrees. We're looking at talent, Leo energy, and
And sport.
yeah,
The fifth house is sport. Fifth house is also
yeah,
sport, we forget,
yeah,
right? And
exactly. And
sport.
Pluto
Mm-hmm.
is sextiling his Neptune. So, it's coming in, it's sextiling that Neptune that is opposing the sun. So it's all, Pluto is heavily involved in his chart. It's making, like you say, it's making really lovely aspects. A funny, well, not a funny story, but an interesting story about Messi is that when he came into the dressing room in Barcelona, even when he was very young, they had heard stories about him, the other players. He was quite prolific, even from a very young age. And the head coach asked him, what position would you like to play? And all the other players were really nervous, because they knew that if Messi said, I want to play wing or whatever, that was their position gone. That he was able to instill fear in other players, even though he was in stature. He was much smaller, and it wasn't intentional, but that's the effect of Pluto when it's
Absolutely.
your sun. And another thing they said about him was that he was really, really shy, and that's typical, I think, of anyone with a Cancer sun. Shyness.
Oh
They
yeah.
thought
Oh yeah.
he was mute as well at certain points. Mercury retrograde as well, of course, that can show shyness and delays. And this is man as well who has, you know, lived abroad for, you know, a lot of his life. And it's also like transferred to clubs where he didn't speak the language, the native language. You know, that's happened to him a lot. And even now in Miami, you know, his Mercury retrograde is being activated again. He's, you know, trying to learn more English so that, you know, he can acclimatize to life in America.
What I'm thinking as well, in traditional astrology, I don't practice it, but I know something. They consider aspects by sign, so they don't care by degree. For example, so if you see Pluto is in Scorpio and Mars is in Cancer, so in traditional that's a trine. Doesn't matter what the orb is. So that also gives him a transformation in physical activity and helping with, you know, with physical activity, growing and doing stuff. So that's also one of the things.
Yeah, and I just see Astrology in Style says, you know, if we use the Aquarius ascendant that many astrologers use, he's Saturn in the 11th, which would indicate shyness in groups. But it's interesting, you know, he has captained so many teams, and you can see that with Saturn in the 11th too. You know, shyness early in life, and then stepping into positions of leadership and authority in group situations. And Messi has certainly experienced that. And another thing I haven't mentioned, I don't have it up on this chart, but he also has Sun opposite Ceres, you know, the asteroid Ceres.
Yes.
All
Yeah, I have
nerve.
it. Yeah. 27
So,
degrees in Sagittarius.
I've made note of that. So Sun opposite Ceres, again, another reason why there was an issue with growth. You know, Ceres is really giving birth to things, it's growth. And Sun opposite Ceres, there's a little bit of struggle there with that one.
And it's conjuncting Uranus, so it's also, you know, something unusual, and, you know, Uranus is always different, right? Unique, right?
Yeah. I mean, his chart really, like, the first time I looked at his chart, I used the one of him as an Aquarius rising, and I didn't really, it's not that I didn't resonate with it, but I felt like we were missing something. And now looking at his chart in Meridian, we're focusing more on the aspects, and it's almost like we're seeing more, you know, this is the interesting thing about astrology. Sometimes when you take a step back, you see more.
Yeah. And what is interesting when you talk about very religious aspects, South Node on part of fortune.
Yeah.
So bringing luck from before, and it's in Libra. So he with the South Node in Libra, he brought in this life the ability to use that harmonious energy to communicate with others, right? So he's going through, you know, and going towards and being and himself, like going to Aries path, using that energy with final fortune there gives him a push. So I think he used it well.
And as well with the South Node conjunct the part of fortune, that tells us that that fixed star Rigel conjunct his Venus, the ruler of his South Node. This is a past gift. So he obviously was prolifically gifted in a past life. But if we look over the North Node, we see the North Node is conjunct the vertex in Aries.
Yes.
And it's Mars rules. And, you know, he's really stepping into his Mars and Cancer energy right now. You know, he's facing into his nodal return.
His chart is actually very hard when you look at it. Many opposition, many squares. But that's, I always say, the more of squares you have and stuff like that, the more you're eager to change, because you're forced to do and grow, right? So this is, you know, with a lot of trines. If he had many trines, he probably wouldn't be such a good soccer player as he is now, right?
Absolutely, Jasmina. He would not be one of the best soccer players in the world if it wasn't for all of the harsh aspects he has in his chart. And actually, Mars conjunct Black Moon Lilith, you know, when I was doing my research on that, it can show, you know, we associate Black Moon Lilith with some dark powers, you know, and it's been associated with witchcraft and all these things. And people say things like, you know, Messi is an alien, Uranus aspects, Messi is magic. You know, he literally has some sort of special powers with Black Moon Lilith conjunct his Mars. And it's just a case of like stepping into it for Messi. But it's so interesting, all of the harsh angles, and you see, and all the squares in his birth chart. And if you like read his life story, yes, he's one of the most decorated players and he's broken all records. But if you read his story, you can see he's had struggle after struggle, setback after setback. He's had injuries. He's lost, you know, games as well as won them. He's
That's
missed, you
great.
know, penalties, things like that.
You know, great captains and great leaders have to go through harsh times because they know how. I don't know. I just feel that his chart, it seems very harsh and hard, but it actually it's giving him the power to overdo it. Astrology star was mentioning if he's Aquarius ascendant, the ruler Uranus is most aspected planet, and the hard aspects to Uranus could indicate his stunt growth as ascendant in associated with physical appearance.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
very good point. Yeah, it is. So
That can
you're
also be.
most aspect, and Uranus as well. You know, if we look at the aspects to Uranus, you know, Uranus trining Jupiter, I feel like that's
Yeah.
what gives him this kind of pace he has when he's on the ball. It's very quick, it's very creative, it's very intelligent play. You know, it's the sort of play that people say, oh, we haven't seen this before, or we haven't seen this since, you know, Maradona or whatever. And this is very typical of someone with Uranus trine Jupiter. And he has Jupiter sextile Chiron as well, Jasmina, which is another interesting one. You know, Jupiter,
Yes.
let me see if I can show it there. That's Jupiter. Where is his Chiron? Chiron is up here. It's a pretty tight orb, Jasmina. It's 1 degree orb.
Yes.
So
Yes.
again, this could be another indication of like being quite divinely protected when it came to, you know, getting the treatment he needed, the healing he needed, that aspect he had from Jupiter. Because if we look at the Jupiter aspects, yes, Jupiter was squaring his Mars, but Jupiter trines his Uranus. It actually squares his Lilith as well, yeah, and it sextiles his Chiron. So I think, you know, overall he has some nice aspects there from some of the important planets like Jupiter and Pluto. You know, even though it's considered, you know, quite malefic, in Messi's case, it has definitely been really helpful for him in life.
Uh, for this generation that has Saturn and Uranus together, so most of them are here to bend the rules as well. So, you know, having a traditional, you know, having self-discipline and, you know, being their own authority, actually. With all this, he had to be his own authority as well and make his own discipline. But then on the other side, he also wants to break free and be unique. So finding the blend, like bending, instead of breaking the rules, bending them. Like even if as a soccer player, he's always pushing the boundaries, right?
Exactly,
A little
yeah.
bit. But he's not breaking them. He's not breaking them. He's just pushing them a little bit.
Yeah, and I didn't mention that his Mars is conjunct fixed star Mintaka, which is another fixed star associated with good fortune. Now, you and I, we're both currently learning fixed stars together.
Yes.
So, but if anybody wants to jump in on that, I definitely think though fixed star Rigel is a really big one for him, and is one of the reasons why he is so gifted.
Christina is here. Hi, Christina, and Georgiana is here as well. Oh, thank you, ladies, for joining. I always like support of our friends. That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah, his chart is very interesting.
Yeah, and so
what do you think of him as a father? What do you think of him as a father? He says in all these articles that he's a very strict father, and I can see that in his chart to his kids.
So anyone who has Saturn opposite the moon natally will be strict. And remember, he is Sun opposite Ceres, so I mean, he is going to be strict as well in how he nurtures, you know, his children. He is a Cancer. He's a Cancer Sun, but opposite asteroid Ceres. I think it will be tough love, you know.
Tough love, yeah, I think as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, because but Cancerians, and he has a stellium in Cancer, so they always fight for their families, especially Mars in Cancer. You know, he will always wanted to protect his family, no matter what.
Yeah,
so,
very protective of his family, and it's nice to see him at a, you know, if we think about the aspects and what he's going through right now with, let's say, if we think about where the planets are in the sky right now, Jasmina, you know, he's moved his family to Miami. Saturn is Pisces, and, you know, I guess it's going to be getting closer to his natal moon next year.
It's squaring his sun. So what is happening? It's squaring. Oh no, not squaring. Sorry. No, sorry.
Squaring his moon
disregard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's going to be, you know, he's going to be having his first Saturn square next year as well. So his moon his moon Saturn opposition is going to get very activated next year. You know, when Saturn gets to what is it, 15 degrees of
Yeah.
Pisces? Yeah.
I'm thinking he had, why did he had a tough situation and had to work hard? So Saturn was in Capricorn and in Aquarius for the last 6 years. So it was hitting his Cancerian stuff, right?
Yeah.
Being in Capricorn, and Pluto was in Capricorn for so long, so it was hitting all of this, his Mars all the time. Like his Mars was very active during this hard transitions of Pluto and
Yeah.
with Saturn the
He got
previous
some
years.
serious hits from Pluto the last 20 years. I mean, Pluto went over his Sun, his Mercury, his Mars, his Black Moon Lilith. But I guess the gift that Pluto left was the World Cup.
Yeah, but I'm saying, don't mention that we Croatians still are crying because of that. So we, anyway, it is what it is. But
Forgot that.
I'm just saying that give him actually ability. So when Saturn is hitting you, it's hard, but if you work hard, you get results. That's just what I said. You know, people say, oh, Saturn, but it's good, guys, because it gives you, you know, the ability, because he worked hard. If he didn't, right? So
And
I think
right,
that this,
Pluto, Jasmina, you know,
mm-hmm.
is actually it's kind of, it's, you know, Pluto again, you know, it's retrograding back into Capricorn. So, you know, he's kind of getting hit again, you know, you know, there's little things coming up again with that retrograde energy. But when Pluto moves into Aquarius, you know, again, he's going to have, you know, transformations to, you know, his home and family life and his career over the next, you know, we're going to say 10, 20 years, huge, like, for him. But like the very
Absolutely.
interesting thing is nodal return. Um,
Yes, it's coming next year as well.
yeah, here in the autumn of his career,
Yeah.
he's about to, because it's an Aries North Node, we know that he's going to give birth to something really new. And in Messi's case, surely it is something to do with football in America. You know, from given this move to Inter Miami, he's going to start something really new with this nodal return that's happening for him next year.
So also what I kind of learned a little bit, I don't know much, but in evolutionary astrology, because I do all these lives, I get all this information. So they're talking about a skip step. So it's the planet who's squaring your nodes. And he actually has a grand square with the nodes, with the Sun and the Neptune, right?
Yeah.
So Sun 2 degrees and 6. So, and in evolutionary astrology, as I understand, they consider 10 degrees for orb. So in his case, this is a skip step. So that means he needs to shine in this life, Sun.
Mm-hmm.
Because in previous lives, he missed that. He missed the opportunity to shine and to use Neptune, intuition. As you said, he has this, you know,
Way of playing, yeah.
right? And this artistic, because for him, soccer is art, as you said. So it's completely, you know, if people notice. So I think he's using that very well. I think he's using his purpose in life very well.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he's really stepping into that, I guess, that karmic cross energy. And this Neptune opposite his Sun, he's definitely destined to be remembered as someone, you know, who was one of the best, you know, when it comes to football. He's going to be revered for a very long time. And if you look at the orbs as well, there with the square from the Sun to his nodes, it's 5 degrees again, you know, talent.
Again, yeah, talent and sport. It's the fifth house, and it's a Leo energy. Shine. You know,
Yeah.
you have to shine. Although he doesn't have anything in Leo, this is telling us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, he doesn't have any Leo placements, but you know, he's very spiritual. He's not really a showboat player, you know. I haven't looked at Cristiano Ronaldo's chart. I just know he's got Neptune near his ascendant. Again, Neptune near the angles is always a sign of someone that's, you know, very godlike in the way they play,
Yeah.
you know, how talented they are. But, you know, when Messi scores the goal, he points his finger up to heaven. It's
Yes.
gesture to his grandmother, his late grandmother. So he's very, family oriented, very spiritual. Again, this is the hallmark of someone. Neptune opposite the sun again can be very spiritual, and as well, Cancer energy quite spiritual too. And Venus conjunct the moon, someone who absolutely loves their home and their family.
Absolutely. Yeah. And women in life, right? Mom, grandmother, as you said, his
Yeah,
wife, right? So,
yeah, yeah. Well, I think when Venus is conjunct the moon and it's in Gemini, you have very strong patriotic feelings towards more than one
oh,
place.
yeah.
And for him, definitely Barcelona, is the club that that gave him everything, that he's very strong ties to. And then obviously his home country, Argentina. So that's really reflected with this Venus moon conjunction as well.
Yeah, yeah. I like how astrology style is always telling us something why she thinks he's Aquarius ascendant. I love it. So it gives him the 5th house stellium, which is then Sun is dignified in the 5th house, as it's a Leo house. So that's another thing. Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
The Aquarius ascendant would make him born, at 8:30 at night. And this is the issue that there's, his mother claims he was born at 2:20, and that would make him a Scorpio rising, not an Aquarius rising or a Libra rising. So we're really at sea with Messi, unless we do like birth chart rectification, which would be a cool thing to do with Uranian dial, actually, Jasmina, at some point.
That's a thing. We can do exercise. We can have a homework. Do that as well.
But like, it is amazing. I think it is amazing that this man is no earth energy at all.
Yes. That is that's why I think that he has placements in Earth houses, like 10th house. If this is correct, kind of, then he has a lot of Mars in the 10th house, which is a Saturn house, an Earth house, right? So it gives him that.
Yeah, in meridian system, this is how his chart looks in meridian. So in meridian, this means that he's carrying the Martian energy of a 10th house stellium. This is someone, if there's a 10th house stellium, you can be shy, but you're going to be seen whether you want to be seen or not. You were meant to be seen in this life. And the interesting thing about the meridian system is that so many of his planets get elevated, and this is a famous man. And I looked at his chart as a Scorpio rising too, looking at that 20:02 birth time, and that put Pluto on his ascendant, which is really significant because he's a
which also I can see
person, very powerful, very influential, a leader, and someone who can definitely, when he walks onto the pitch, and even goalkeepers have said that they felt like what was even the point of trying to defend against him.
Yeah. Just like he brings the energy. When with Pluto in the 1st house, people when they come in, people feel their power when they come into the room, or they feel the presence. Yeah.
That you don't mess with someone with Pluto in the 1st house. But getting back to his North Node, like, it's so interesting the way, even though he doesn't really have very strong Aries placements, apart from his Jupiter, I guess, but that vertex there in Aries, we've seen his, when he gets angry, his North Node pop out, his head go forward, that Aries Ram energy. You always see that in people who have strong Aries, and that's definitely that Martian energy. So his Mars is a very important planet for him, I feel, in this lifetime, when it rules his North Node of destiny.
And the reason why he's also shy, when you were talking about it's Mercury in Cancer retrograde. What can be more shy? Like Mercury doesn't like being Cancer because it's driven by the communication is driven by why we feel and our moods, and it's retrograde, it's introspective. So the way he communicates, especially when you're young, when you don't understand, that's absolutely a shy placement for me.
And even in 16, I think he was 28. And again, 28 is old, in terms of being a footballer. I think he was 28 and 29. I'm open to being correct in this, but he lost a game with Argentina. I'm pretty sure it wasn't World Cup related, but he was so devastated that he
was Saturn return as well. It's a part of a Saturn return. So,
and literally it was like, I'm finished, I'm not doing this anymore. that is how Saturn will make you feel, especially
Yeah.
if
You want to give
Saturn
up.
opposite your Venus. This guy,
Yeah.
honestly, he does not know how amazing he is. There's no way he could know how amazing he is. He's got Saturn opposite his Venus, which means that he's going to remain humble his whole life. You know, he's never going to be a guy that is going to be like,
It's a problem with self-esteem and self-value, you know,
yeah,
self-confidence. It's up. He doesn't, and with Chiron near his sun, so it's a double aspect for me, showing that he had issues with self-confidence, which is probably connected with the growth issue that he had as a kid. So it's also connected with
yeah,
that. But
and
I don't know. I assume.
too, and not being maybe understood and not speaking the native language. So many different things. Shyness too with Chiron and Gemini, you can often see that. But this is a guy that will remain humble like throughout his whole life, and will definitely remain grounded too, even though he doesn't have that earth energy. I do feel that, you know, when Saturn is opposite, you know, Saturn is this quite Capricorn energy of like keeping your feet on the ground and pulling you back down to earth if you lose the run of yourself. And Messi is going to, you know, remain quite humble in spite of everything he achieves with Saturn opposite his Venus and his moon.
Yeah, but I still feel that he might struggle in life or be realistic. You know, if somebody tells him, you know, this is, you know, not, I don't think
Or not
he might fight it.
with the
You know what I'm saying? I think he might
with
fight
Neptune,
it.
and you feel, is it?
Yeah, with all these placements and not having Earth, you know, if somebody puts too much reality in him, on him, like too much, he might, you know, that's where he gets. I don't think he obliged to it. Let's say, you know.
Yeah, hang on. I'm just 4:20 p.m. is his mother's. Okay, so 4:20 p.m. So
Yeah,
that's a different.
Astrology in Style actually contacted me. She said she's researching Messi's chart as well for
Yeah,
some
it's
her
so interesting.
research.
It's so interesting.
So yeah.
But yeah, they're the main things like we see for him. But I mean, if we had a birth time that was more accurate, I think we
Mm-hmm.
could probably tell an awful lot more. But like looking at his aspects alone, this is a man with a lot of struggle and also a lot of gifts. The fixed stars show that. And like it's greatness through the medium of struggle. You know, this is what you're seeing in his chart.
I think he's doing his purpose with the karmic square, as we said, with doing his sun shining, being the leader, and using Neptune as a tool. And I think that's perfect.
Yeah.
I think that's.
Find out his birth time, his accurate birth time. That would be amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Great leader. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Cool.
But that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this was
Are there
fun.
any
I miss doing this. No, there's no questions, but I really miss doing this. We should do this more often.
Yeah,
Looking at people's.
I need to have a birth time for the next celebrity though, so we can go a bit deeper.
Yeah, I know this is not maybe as interesting as Messi, but I know that Croatian captain Luka Modric, he has a also interesting chart, and he had also a very rough childhood, being a refugee during the war, and you know, not having money and struggled. So, this is a great example. Caitriona and we're going to do next. Georgiana asks. We'll see. We have a hat.
Georgiana, for different sportsmen. It's incredible, but I like to keep it varied. You know, I don't want to only do, because I'm the type I could go down a rabbit hole of doing them all. I've been approached about different types. I still need to do Mark Zuckerberg's chart. You know, I had a quick look at his chart, but
I thought this is the name you're not mentioning on Instagram. The person is.
I've up a little bit on Mr. Z.
Yeah.
His chart on TikTok. But yeah, it's an interesting one for sure.
See, Barbie says great stream. Doing research for a person without a birth time, and you gave me a lot of ideas. Oh, thank you. That's excellent.
Yeah,
cool.
We could get rid of all these houses and just look at the aspect.
Yeah.
But
I want to thank you, Caitriona, for this chart, because it's a great showcase of a person who has a heart chart and can do great things with it.
Yeah.
Because and I want remove the stigma of, people are afraid of their charts. Oh my God, this is hard. It doesn't have to be. If you embrace it, you can do so much, and you can be example for others. So
you Google Saturn opposite Venus, you will find nothing good, okay?
yeah, but that doesn't.
You look at Lionel Messi, he's got Saturn opposite Venus, and he's arguably one of the greatest footballers of all time. Why? Because he's Saturn opposite Venus, and his Venus is conjunct fixed star Rigel, definitely helps too. But the point being is that you need to use real life tangible examples so that you don't feel doomed by aspects in your birth chart.
Also, I want to mention our chart progresses with time. So this is the chart we were born with, but we have another technique of progressions where we see that how we evolve as a person and how we progress. So we are not who we are. I mean, we are, but it's also changing. It's alive. The chart is alive and it's growing with us, with our experiences and the way we manifest things in lives. So it's not set in stone, right?
Yeah,
so
actually look at his progressions because of the fact that we didn't have a birth
yeah.
was concrete, but it would have been nice to look at his solar return or his progressions, because he's entering an exciting chapter at the moment for sure.
Yeah, so that's another way of thinking when you look at the chart. It can be difficult, it can be a lot of squares and oppositions, but if you work with it and you progress in time, things change. And
as a karmic cross, I mean, I count white orbs. I know you do too, Jasmina, because Matt is taught take into account the orbs. And if you're an astrologer that doesn't count orbs, from 4 to 5 to 6, you're missing out, I have to say, because Messi has a karmic cross and it's really played out in his life, and it's showing the 5-degree orbs is showing it's real hallmark of his talent, his skill, how incredible he is, and how this was, he's an older soul for sure.
He has 5 planets retrograde. That tells me a lot. So he came with a lot of stuff here to resolve that he couldn't before, and it is his job to shine in this life, and he really shined as the brightest star. He
wonderful poster boy for anyone, especially a man with Mars in Cancer, because Mars in Cancer is a really difficult placement. Mars is in detriment in Cancer. Mars doesn't like being in Cancer. And Cancerian energy is feminine energy. And, if you're a Cancer rising man, or if you're a man with a Cancer stellium, that's not easy, especially in the world we live in where, toxic masculinity is promoted. And especially in sport, it's all about, being overtly masculine. And here we have Messi, who's got like this stellium of beautiful, nurturing, feminine energy, and yet he's one of the highest achieving guys in sport. Is it because of his sensitivity? Is it because of his intuition? These are the gifts. He's empathetic. These are the gifts of being a Cancerian. He's got a really big heart. You can tell that from looking at his birth chart. And he's a guy who's been humbled by the amount of struggle he's had in life as well. And he's just, he's pretty amazing individual.
Yeah. No, that's a great example. Great chart to inspire others who have hard charts. I would say really, really inspiring. Thank you, Caitriona, for this chart. I really enjoyed looking at it.
Thanks to everyone for joining, and for
I like
this as we walked through his birth chart in Meridian. But we've mainly focused on the aspects, which I think is important.
Yes. I like what Astrology style says. He sure is very protective of the ball when in play. I like that.
That's a very good point. Say that when he's playing, he never takes his eye off the ball. He doesn't look at the defenders. He doesn't look at anyone. He doesn't look at the goalkeeper. His eye is on the ball the whole time if you watch him play.
Focus.
Yes.
Saturn gives you focus, people. It gives you focus, so it's good. It's good. Use Saturn. Thank you, Astrology Style. Thank you, Caitriona. It was beautiful. Thank you for having me. I like that I can come as a guest sometimes.
Trying to figure out the technology, Mercury retrograde. This was a lot of fun doing Messi's chart, and if anyone has an accurate birth time for Messi, we can all agree on, hit us up.
Or if you have any suggestions that you would like to talk about with the correct chart, like a birth time for somebody who is actually maybe something that is happening right now that we want to
Yes,
discuss.
someone topical is always good. Someone who's in the news is good because we can look at
Yeah.
their aspect. Yes.
Yes. Cool.
Leonel,
Awesome.
Jasmina, is it Lionel or Lionel? Because I know I have Karen in Gemini. People pronounce his
I don't
name.
know. Lion, Lionel. I would say because he's not English, from English part of the world, I would say Lionel
Yeah.
more than Lionel. You know,
Yeah.
if he was from English part of the world, then, you know, I
Yeah.
would say Lionel.
Exactly. Thanks
I
everyone for
don't know.
joining, and I will
Yeah.
save people who want to watch it back.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, and talk to you
Thanks,
soon. Bye,
Jess.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.